Picture this. You sit down to work. No warm-up, no negotiating with yourself, no checking your phone just once before you start. You open the task, you go in, and 90 minutes later, you surface having done more than you used to accomplish in a full day. No motivation required, no willpower ritual, no vision board, just output. That version of you is not a fantasy. It is what happens when you stop trying to force yourself to work and start designing a situation where working is simply what happens next. Here is the problem with almost every productivity conversation you have ever had. It starts with discipline. Try harder. Want it more. Be the kind of person who wakes up at 5. And look, maybe that works for some people. But for most, discipline is a finite resource that gets consumed by the morning's first decision and is completely depleted by 3 in the afternoon. Relying on willpower to be productive is like trying to run a factory on batteries. It works briefly, then it stops, and then you feel worse about yourself than before you started. The real answer is not more discipline, it is better design. Your environment, your systems, your defaults. These are the invisible architecture that your behavior runs on whether you notice it or not. The question is not whether your environment is shaping your behavior. It is whether you designed that environment on purpose or whether you just inherited it and are wondering why you keep losing. Start with your phone. Not a lecture, just a fact. The average person picks up their phone over 90 times a day. That is not weakness. That is the product of engineers who spent careers optimizing for exactly that behavior. Your phone, in its default state, is specifically designed to be the most interesting thing in your vicinity at all times. Competing with that using willpower is an unfair fight. So stop competing and start redesigning. Remove every application that does not directly serve your work or your growth. Move social media off your home screen entirely or off your phone. Enable grayscale mode. Studies on behavioral design consistently show that reducing the visual reward of a stimulus reduces engagement with it. A gray, boring phone is a phone you pick up less. The goal is not to hate your phone. The goal is to make the default action in your environment the one you actually want to take. The next lever is your morning, not the motivational version of a morning routine where you rise at dawn and conquer, just the functional version that prevents you from handing your first cognitive hours to chaos. Here is the non-negotiable core. No phone for the first 30 minutes after waking. This is not about being anti-technology. It is about the fact that your prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for planning, focus, and decision-making, takes time to come fully online after sleep. Flooding it with reactive information, notifications, and other people's priorities before it has fully activated is one of the most effective ways to guarantee a fragmented, reactive day. Instead, drink water, move your body for 5 minutes, stretch, walk, anything, and write down the 3 specific outcomes you intend to produce today. Not a to-do list of 20 things, 3 outcomes. This act of writing forces prioritization. It tells your brain what the day is actually for, and that signal compounds. Now you need to know where real productivity actually lives. It does not live in multitasking. It does not live in a full inbox, a busy calendar, or the feeling of constant motion. It lives in deep, uninterrupted blocks of focused work. The research here is unambiguous. Gloria Mark at the University of California, Irvine found that it takes an average of 23 minutes and 15 seconds to fully regain deep focus after a single interruption. Every time you switch tabs, check a message, or respond to a notification, you are not just spending the seconds that action takes, you are spending the recovery time afterward. Multiply that across a workday and the math becomes devastating. The structure that addresses this is simple. One task, one block, no exceptions. Set a timer for 90 minutes. Put on headphones. Switch everything else to do not disturb. Work on that one thing and nothing else until the timer ends. Then stop. Walk, hydrate, rest for 10 minutes, and decide whether to go again.
This is not a productivity gimmick. It is alignment with your brain's natural ultradian rhythm, the approximately 90-minute cycles of high cognitive activity that your brain moves throughout the day, mirroring the sleep cycles it runs at night. Working with these cycles instead of ignoring them is the difference between feeling wired and productive versus feeling ground down and empty by 2 p.m. The blocks work even better when your brain has learned to associate a specific set of sensory cues with focused work. This is classical conditioning applied intentionally, the same mechanism Pavlov demonstrated, adapted for performance. You choose a consistent workspace, a consistent audio environment, instrumental music, ambient sound, anything without lyrics that your brain can process without engaging language centers. And you begin every session with the same sequence, same chair, same playlist, same pre-work ritual. Repeated consistently, these cues become triggers. Over weeks, simply sitting in that chair and putting on those headphones begins to pull your brain toward focus without effort. You are not relying on motivation to get started. You are activating a trained response. The neurological term for this is a contextual cue, and it is one of the most underutilized tools in personal productivity. Progress visibility matters more than most productivity frameworks acknowledge. Your brain runs on feedback loops. When you can see that you are winning, when progress is legible, motivation to continue is generated automatically. When progress is invisible, it feels like nothing is happening and effort collapses. This is why streaks work, why points work, why even simple visual systems like marking an X on a calendar work. Build a tracker that makes your focused work blocks visible. Every completed 90-minute block gets a mark. 5 marks in a day is a win worth acknowledging. A streak of consistent days becomes something you are reluctant to break. This is not gamification for its own sake. It is engineering the feedback loop your brain needs to sustain behavior over time. But here is the piece that most productivity systems leave out entirely. None of this works if your energy is depleted. You can have the perfect system, the perfect environment, and the perfect morning, and still accomplish almost nothing if your physical and cognitive fuel levels are empty. Energy is not a soft variable. It is the substrate everything else runs on. Sleep is the foundation. Not sleep as a lifestyle preference, but sleep as the mechanism by which your prefrontal cortex restores its capacity for decision-making and focus. Research by Matthew Walker and others has demonstrated that even modest sleep deprivation, 6 hours instead of 8 for several consecutive nights, produces cognitive impairment equivalent to being legally drunk. You cannot think your way out of a depleted brain. You have to refuel it. Daily movement, even 10 to 20 minutes of walking, has been shown to increase BDNF, improve mood, and sharpen cognitive function measurably. Journaling, or any form of brain dump at the end of the day, clears the working memory of unresolved tasks that would otherwise cycle through your thoughts and disrupt your next morning. Eating in a way that avoids major blood sugar spikes and crashes, not perfection, just consistency, keeps your cognitive energy stable across the day. These are not lifestyle extras, they are the fuel system. The final structural piece is eliminating decision fatigue through themed days. Every decision you make depletes the same cognitive resource pool that focus draws from. A day full of small decisions, what to work on, what to skip, what to respond to, leaves less cognitive capacity for the deep work itself. Theming your days removes this entirely. One day is for creative output only. Another is for communication and meetings. Another is for administrative work. When you sit down, you already know what today is for. There's no negotiation, no reevaluation, no wondering whether this is the best use of your time right now. The decision was already made at the system level. You show up and execute. So here's the honest summary of what separates people who are genuinely productive from everyone else. It is not that they are more motivated. It is not that they have more discipline. It is that they made decisions in advance about their environment, their time, and their energy. And those decisions reduced the friction between wanting to work and actually working to almost zero. They stopped fighting their own nature and started designing around it. You are not lazy. You are unarmed, and now you have the architecture. The only question is which piece you install first. Pick one: the phone, the morning, the deep work block, the trigger cues, the tracker, the energy, the themed days, and build it into your week before you go to bed tonight. Not all 7, one, because one system that actually runs beats 7 systems that live in a notes app. Start there. Watch what happens.